graphical easements and why do they cause problems? A graphical easement has its shape, its dimensions, and its location defined by a sketch or a diagram, and it's usually not defined in a written land description that's prepared by a land surveyor. So I can give you some examples that I've seen just in the last 12 months in my own practice as a land surveyor. So I was working on a project in Oakland, and there was a building that was built right up against the right-of-way of the public street, so zero setback. And this building had a number of overhangs, fire stairwells and awnings and canopies. And there was a permit that allowed the building owner to construct and have those building appurtenances, they called it, in the public right-of-way. And instead of preparing a written land description, they grabbed a sheet out of the architectural site plans and just kind of circled or clouded with a Sharpie marker the appurtenances or the building features that were going to be permitted to be in the right-of-way. I'll give you another example I had. I was working on a project in Tracy at the shopping mall in Tracy, and when the original developer went in and built the mall, they needed a storm drain easement, and instead of properly preparing an easement, either the written description or dedicating it on the parcel map, they just took a sheet out of the civil engineering plans and highlighted some storm drain lines and said, we've got an easement over these storm drain lines. The third example I had was a project I worked on, and I'm trying to think of the city. It was over on the peninsula in the Bay Area. I think it was Belmont. And there was a shared parking driveway area next to this new building that was being put in. They shared it with the neighbors. And I told the civil engineer, I said, hey, you need to get an easement for this shared access here, because you're shown as one of the main driveways in and out of the building. And it's not clear that we have legal rights to that. And so instead of having me as the land surveyor prepare a legal description for that, the attorney for the client just grabbed one of the sheets out of the civil plans and just kind of highlighted the parking lot, and then they used that to record a shared parking and access agreement. So why do people do that? Why do they create graphical easements? There's three reasons why that might happen. One is graphical easements don't require a land surveyor. So if you don't have a land surveyor on your project team and you need an easement, if you could use a coloring book, then you could create a graphical easement. The second reason is because they don't require a land surveyor, they're cheap. So you can get them, you might get one of those for a couple $100. So your architect or your civil engineer can whip out a Sharpie or a highlighter and highlight a couple plan sheets and you're good to go, right? So that doesn't cost very much money. And the third reason that might happen is people just don't understand. They don't understand the problems that can be caused by graphical easements, or why you might want to pay a land surveyor to actually prepare a proper easement. And I always tell people, I know surveys are expensive, and hiring a land surveyor to prepare a proper easement package is not cheap. That's usually a couple $1,000s. In my part of California, at least, could be more, depending on what you need. And so, if your architect will do it for free and a land surveyor wants a couple $1,000s, a lot of clients are going to go with the free option. So let me just stop here and say there's nothing wrong with having a graphical plat as part of an easement. All the easement packages that I prepare as a land surveyor include a graphical plat, because I think those graphical plats are very helpful when you're trying to relocate that easement on the ground. However, my graphical plats are always accompanied by a written land description, and I follow certain rules when I prepare my legal plats so that they can be properly interpreted, by another land surveyor, by court. They are very much not a napkin sketch, and they are very much not some highlighting or some Sharpie marks on a set of design plans, on a sheet of a design plan. So, what problems are caused by graphical easements? The main problem with graphical easements is they're inherently uncertain. So the shape, dimension, and location of the easement on the ground is inherently uncertain because you're not using surveyor measurements. Sometimes you just have a cloud Sharpied on a set of design plans, or maybe somebody highlights a storm drain line. How wide is that? How deep is it? What if the storm drain line didn't get built in the same spot as shown on the plans? Is the storm drain line in the easement or not? So there's all kinds of issues that could potentially come up because graphical easements are inherently uncertain. So just by their very nature, by the way they're made, they are not accurate. And then the second related problem with graphical easements is they're just very hard to locate on the ground. So even if you hire a land surveyor later to come in and try and locate a graphical easement, because of their inherent uncertainty, that surveyor may not be able to accurately locate that easement on the ground. He may be able to get you in the ballpark. He may not. If their site's changed, he may not be able to do that. So I'll give you an example. Let's go back to that first example I told you about, the building in Oakland that had a graphical type of easement for this permit for these building accessories. So let's say now that it's been 20 or 30 or 50 years and the facade of the building has changed, the building's been remodeled, and now the city wants to come in and they want to do something with the right-of-way. Maybe they're putting in an elevated light rail line, and now there could potentially be a conflict. The building owner says, hey, the city says, hey, building owner, you're going to move your fire escape, and the building owner says, no, we have an easement or we have a permitted right for this fire escape. And the city says, well, where the fire escape is today isn't where you were permitted. And now there's an argument about where was the permitted area for that building appurtenance, and the building's changed. And even if you hire a surveyor, if the building's changed, he may not be able to locate exactly where that fire escape was. So look, it doesn't matter until it matters. And then when it matters, it really matters. And a lot of things in boundary surveying and land title are like that. So don't cut corners. Don't let your architect or civil engineer or lawyer prepare cartoon easements or permit exhibits. They will cause problems down the road. Pay the couple $1,000s. Get a proper easement package. So that's the alternative. What's the alternative to graphical easements? Get a proper surveyed easement package. What does that include? A proper package for an easement or a permit prepared by a land surveyor has a written description. Okay, the written land description, sometimes they're called legal descriptions. That should either be meets and bounds or strict description. In my opinion, in 2020, there isn't room for any other kind of description. And if you're a surveyor, you know what that is. It should include a graphical plat, like we talked about, which meets the rules to be properly interpreted by a court or another land surveyor. And it should have a mathematical closure report or geometrical closure report. So the other thing to remember is if an easement needs to cover a physical feature like a road or a parking lot or a fire escape stairway, then there should be a field survey, and the legal dimensions of the legal shape and dimensions and location of the easement that's prepared by the surveyor, description of the easement should match the physical feature, and that should be built based on a field survey. And I'll do another video that talks about that in more detail because easements that are prepared without a field survey can cause problems as well. So in summary, graphical easements are a shortcut. They're like cartoons with the potential to do serious damage down the road. Don't use them. Hire a surveyor. Get a good, proper surveyed easement or permit description and plat, graphical plat that will stand up in a court of law.